Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. We have an action-packed show this week because so many things have happened. But I wanted to kick it off by letting you talk about your Claysburg Bulldogs coach. I had some stats here. I forgot to bring them up last week. But you have got your guys ranked 31st in the state. And I want to say I think that's the highest ranking that Claysburg's possibly ever been from what I've seen. So congrats there. In Class A, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to say that we were probably, I don't know off the top of my head either, but I would think that we were probably a little bit higher around here, around that mark last year when we were around 5-1. So I think we could be in that same general ballpark, but it's a great spot to be in. I appreciate you posting the link for our game. It was a wet one. We were dealing with, the weather report showed that we were only supposed to have a little bit of rain, and we ended up just getting just a steady amount all day. So it affected the overall game plan a little bit, but we kind of had a plan B in place that we were ready to go with. And like I told the reporters after the game, we won 30-0, but it really didn't feel like the score was reflective of how we played, because we had a pile of penalties and just dumb mental mistakes that hopefully we're able to clean up this week, because we have a really big matchup against Glendale. They're 3-1, we're 3-1, and it's definitely going to help us as far as playoff seeding if we can pull a win out this week.
Yeah, I've been watching you guys. I really like how you have the live stream on YouTube. I tried to look around, and not a lot of high schools actually have that. So very cool. If you follow us on Twitter, you can actually go to southboundsports.com and check us out there. Follow our social media. I shared the link on Twitter, possibly putting it out on Facebook next time if I get there in time to get it up. But you could follow Coach, see his game plan, and see that we're not just talking out of our ass on this show. Got some good football knowledge. Got a great team. Looks like it. I didn't see any mental mistakes, but from being far away, it's hard to tell. I know you'd know better than me, but you might also be nitpicking. I know how coaches like to do that. You got anything for high tempo this week?
No, not really. Just my big focus this week was on our team and just trying to play to get better. And I kind of have respect for what I see in a lot of programs, because as you're starting to look, this is the point of year where injuries start to set in. You've played a couple games and it's kind of seeing how your game plan may change from week to week based off of how injuries creep up. And I think that's what kind of separates the great teams from the average ones, is if you get bit with the injury bug, do you have enough talent to replace those guys? And if you don't have the talent, what are you doing scheme-wise to try to keep yourself competitive?
Yeah, definitely. I want to bring that up, too. I saw an article today where they have said that high school football participation is now the lowest it has been since 1999, I believe.
Yeah.
And I read through the article myself because I thought, okay, here we go. What kind of clickbait title is this? And football still has strong numbers. It's still over 1 million participants. I have seen all kind of scare tactics across Pennsylvania as a state where a lot of people are wondering if the smaller schools should just go to 8-man football. But I think at that point, you're dealing with schools that are so spread out. It's tough for them to even have, I think some of the other options are like co-opting teams where you combine schools and they just play for, I guess, the larger one in the area. But I honestly, from the outside, numbers are dwindling, I think, in all sports, not just football, because of the smartphone, because of social media, because of video games. People have, like, the video game aspect. They put that on there, and they don't think, but that really does take effect on all kind of numbers, not just for sports, but just any social gatherings, like school dances and things like that. So there are newer aspects. It's not like 20 years ago, like they talked about in the article, where you go play sports and that's it. there are all kind of other avenues out there. So as a football fan, I'm not worried at all about the dwindling numbers because it really wasn't that big of a drop. I think the percent was like 2%. So in the grand scheme of things, not that much. But Coach, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I talked about it a little bit on the interview that I did last week for WTRN, but I do think a big part of the dwindling numbers aspect comes from it takes a lot of commitment now to play football. And it's not a sport, and like to really be good and to be safe, it's not, you can't just show up in August and be ready to play. You almost have to be lifting and training and doing the things, because if you're not, the other teams are, and then you're at a physical disadvantage, and it puts you at more of a risk of being injured during the season. So I think when you have to put the amount of time in, I just think there's a lot of kids that now would much rather do other things than to put that time in and commitment. And especially if their school is not a successful school, they're going to be even less likely to want to do those things. So I think that's kind of why you see some of the participation dropping.
I'll also add in that it could be a lot of focus, like you said, on time, where a lot of kids now, they seem to focus only on one sport. So you pick, okay, if I'm tall enough, I'm just going to focus on basketball. I don't want to risk getting hurt. I'm not playing any other sport. Where 20 years ago, you had the multi-sport athlete that was made popular by Bo Jackson, the Deion Sanders, guys like that. And I think that was very popular when I was growing up. Not so much anymore.
It still is, though, because when you look at the NFL draft, the majority of the first-round draft picks are multi-sport athletes. It's just getting people to understand that. I think that when you look at like a basketball program that pushes AAU and they push for that specialization, I think that hurts when they're trying to force for baseball that has year-round participation. I think you can specialize by being involved with your sport year-round if you want to. But football is not one of those sports that you can physically do year-round.
And I think that's why I brought up basketball as the main point. I think basketball is the number one culprit. They're trying to be hip on all the social media channels and things like that. They're trying to bring in the younger athletes, where baseball, I don't think you have that issue. Even though they play year-round, I think their coaches are fine with them playing multiple sports. And I believe actually Coach Harbaugh has a guy that was on the football team, played in the College World Series this past summer for Michigan. So you have that type of athlete. And yes, like you're right. Normally top guys, they have that opportunity. I feel like it's the predatory coaches of the AAU, which is well known, where they're going to come to the kid that maybe, hey, they don't have the top talent, but maybe if I get you just to focus on basketball for the entire year and don't play anything else, hey, maybe you can get a scholarship, or maybe you can get this or that. And I feel like they're just throwing the carrot out there and having these kids chase it when they know that they're not talented enough to be able to do both. So they think, okay, maybe if I have this guy, if he focuses only on basketball, maybe I can get good minutes from him from being a sixth man. Where in football, you can specialize at just one position. You can be a kicker, and I don't even know soccer. You can play soccer and be a kicker on the football field. I mean, that's a well-known thing that I know a lot of high school kids, you play both. Not a big deal. I feel like basketball has become exclusionary, but that's just my take on it. And I'd have to look at some numbers, but I feel like the AAU has a big part of that because of some of those practices of trying to lure kids in. Like, hey, you can pay to be on our team because you still have to pay. Not all of those kids get a free ride for AAU. AAU is very expensive. They talk about the expenses it takes to play high school football. It's very expensive for parents to play AAU, and I know that firsthand. I had one other thing for High Tempo before we get into the football stuff. Baseball, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette put out an awesome article today on how, hey, Bob Nutting has made it okay for you not to spend money and enjoy baseball. I think it was kind of like I don't know if it was satirical or what, but they were trying to go for the thing saying like, hey, he's not putting money he's making into paying for more talent. Maybe you should just not buy season tickets and wait for them to go onto Scalper, and you can get them for like $6 or cheaper. You save more money that way. because that basically is Bob Nutting's approach. You're waiting for journeymen to fall into your lap, and then you try to sell them back, or you trade for them, like Chris Archer, kind of on the tail end of his career. We talked about on the show how his stats were dwindling every year. They signed him in to do what? Sell jerseys, do all kinds of other stuff. So very, very surprising to see such a big newspaper go after an owner that hard. I haven't seen it. I mean, unless you're really like on, what was that guy from the Clippers, where everyone kind of went after him, or like Dan Gilbert after the LeBron letter, because they love LeBron so much that they went after Dan Gilbert. I feel like I've never seen anyone go after Bob Nutting like this unless you were just like a regular fan. Like I re-rip on him all the time. So you can't have it both ways. You can't make a ton of revenue and then expect the fans to just pay to go see that. You can enjoy the ballpark. Hell, if you want to watch baseball, you can pretty much watch it for free if you really wanted to. There are ways to do that. So I thought that was interesting. My last point, before I get some thoughts on that, Matt, they had a poll. 98% of people said that they would rather the Pirates find another owner. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm shocked. They should. He's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. So, not surprised.
I go back to my conspiracy that I don't think that bigger markets want the Pirates to be successful because, for whatever reason, the last I looked, they were top 4 in TV viewership. Like, why are people watching this team? Is it because of the old?
Because it's so comically bad.
But they have to have some old school fans. I just think the old Pittsburgh mentality of like the working class. I think that fandom carries over from the Steelers, from the Penguins into the Pirates. And I think just based on the city itself, it's a blue collar sports town. And I think people will support it even if they don't live in Pittsburgh. And I think they had said too that a lot of people drove to Pittsburgh. I think I saw a stat. It was like 63% of Pittsburgh Pirate tickets are bought from zip codes that are out of town. And they assume that it's fans of the other team. But what if it's not? What if it's just a bunch of random guys that are like from Maryland? Maryland extends all the way down just because they're playing maybe the Baltimore Orioles. Maybe it's just a Pirates fan that's driving up to see the game, or because it's so much cheaper just to go to the game there. I don't know. But I have a hard time feeling like it's not like the Pirates are in Las Vegas where it's a tourist destination and you can fly in for a weekend, go gambling and do all this other stuff. And then you just settle in for a sports game, kind of like what the hockey league is going for and what the Raiders are going to be. It's going to be a glorified tourist destination. Pittsburgh's not like that. So I have a hard time believing that it's just this miracle destination that fans of other teams just want to drive into. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I'll say this. I think that part of the allure is that in itself, the stadium is nice. They do have that going for them. And I think the reputation of it being a nice venue to see a game is well known and well spread. But I think you are getting fans. And you know, when you look at with the division, you have the Cubs that people follow through rain or shine. And you have the Cardinals within your division that travel great. So I mean, you're looking at two other programs and 2 other ball clubs that they're going to have fans travel for their games regardless. You're going to see, you know, and to know that you can get cheap tickets on the cheap, that makes sense to go out and see a game.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't think anything is going to change this year, but I feel like if the trajectory goes down, it's going to be a big thing. My last point that I had was Felipe Vasquez, the Pirates closer this year, just got arrested for sexual contact with an underage female, I believe. I don't know if it even said. But to me, that's just mind-blowing. You're a major league pitcher, and you are going to throw your life away? Like, what is going on? Disgusting. Total dirtbag move. Like, have you never been to a major league sporting event? There are all kind of girls and groupies. It doesn't even matter. Like, why would you even put yourself in that position? So there you have a productive member of the Pirates basically gone. I don't see how he ever plays again in Major League Baseball. I mean, if the allegations are true, they said that they have actual proof. Gone. There's no coming back from that. So now the Pirates are in a position where, are they ever going to pay for bullpen help? Hell no. So unfortunate that any situation like that legally that's off the field. I hate when teams lose players and off the field issues, whether it's like you're wrecking your motorcycle into a van or things like that. But just mind blowing because the ownership is not going to help fill that void. And they'll say, oh, we got to reinvest in the farm system now. Give us 5 more years. I feel like it happens every time. Let's get into some football, though. Big news, man. Ben Roethlisberger. Should I make my guess? I think he's done. I don't see how he comes back from this, Matt. I actually have a whole list of...
But he put out a press release.
Matt, that doesn't matter.
And he said he's going to be like an assistant coach to Mason Rudolph. And he's going to not be an asshole anymore.
The whole offseason, it was stuff about him being an asshole because guess why? Antonio Brown was talking about it the entire time. I'll give Le'Veon Bell some credit because I talked a bunch of shit on him on the show because of his locker room behavior. He hasn't talked about the Steelers at all that I've seen. I even went looking for it today because I thought, you know what? Le'Veon Bell, he played last night for the Jets and they got killed by the Browns, everyone's favorite team. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, Le'Veon Bell, I feel bad for that guy because we knew he ended up in a worse situation. He came out with an Instagram video that I did see. I think it was Instagram. It might have been a Twitter, where he said that he won that lockout. He in his mind, he won by sitting out an entire year, even though the money's not there and he's on a worse team now. I mean, I guess that's debatable. Both are 0-2. But either way, you're in a worse franchise. Jets have not been successful. So maybe he won because he had a season of less hits on his body. The Steelers were using him a lot. And I feel like if he would have came back to the Steelers and signed that original deal, I feel like then he would have won because by that time they would have found out that James Conner was a viable backup and maybe they could have cut his touches. But now he went to another team where he's the guy. And I don't know. So I feel like he's all right in my book. I don't know. I don't think the situation worked out for him, even though he thinks it did. We'll see in the end, but he's not on the radar anymore. His name's not in the news, not in the headlines, but Antonio Brown's is. And for whatever reason, he keeps bringing up the Steelers and Roethlisberger. That's all going to get thrown in because Roethlisberger yelled at him last year. And so now you have the narrative that Roethlisberger's an awful teammate. He has to, he doesn't talk to young guys. He might not know their names in the locker room and all this other stuff.
But part of that is also like when they drafted Rudolph, he went on all the radio and all the press releases and said, it's not my job to coach him up. And he said those comments. So it's just interesting now that he's injured. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to help him out. I'll do all the stuff that I can to make us be successful. Now that I know that I could potentially be done forever.
I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like, notice how he's never said that with other quarterbacks. It gives me a glimmer of hope because he never went out and said, you know what, it's not my job to help Landry Jones when he was out there doing whatever. And then you had Dobbs. It wasn't like Ben was like, hey, you know what, this Dobbs guy, he's going to get some heat. It was only brought up with Mason Rudolph, and I wonder if it was because his ceiling is higher. That's my hope anyway.
I think it's more so to do with the fact that there's no competition for his job now. And I was thinking about this today that I don't know that this is a fair comparison, but the scenario that you're dealing with reminds me of when Drew Bledsoe got hurt in New England and Brady stepped in. That you had a veteran quarterback that was supposed to be the one to carry the team, and you end up having to play a much younger player right off the bat.
But you got to remember, people were not high on Tom Brady. Everyone was making fun of him back in the day. They always showed that draft day, his body type, and how this, and they would throw out he couldn't beat out Drew Henson at Michigan, and all this other stuff about how he wasn't a leader. And now, oh God, look what happened to the Patriots. They got stuck with this young Tom Brady guy. And he's awesome. I even have him on here. I'm going to bring him back up later. I mean, I don't know with Rudolph if it was something, but something definitely clicked. And now Ben Roethlisberger doesn't feel that pressure. You're right. He probably thinks, hey, my job's not at risk. Now I know I can help this guy. I just found it funny that he has never come out and said that about any of his other previous backup quarterbacks. This feels like this is the only one he's ever felt threatened by, at least recently. And dude, I thought it was funny whenever, was it the second touchdown or the first touchdown? He threw a touchdown, and then Rudolph immediately went over to the sideline and gave someone a headbutt and a chest bump while all the coaches are yelling at him, go for two, like in his face. But he thought it was better to celebrate first. And I'll be honest, I like that. Because you're out there, you're having fun, you're doing crazy things. Now, maybe you shouldn't be headbutting people with all the concussion protocols and things like that, but do whatever you got to do to fire the team up. Do the Steelers have anyone else that's firing the team up? I feel like when you have a young group of guys, and they have a younger mix of guys, so you're right. No one, when have you ever seen excitement like that on the sideline for the Steelers? I mean, last year we had guys punching, what was he doing, water coolers or whatever? Or was that 2 years ago? I don't remember all the shenanigans. But crazy. I when I saw that, I thought, wow, I'm getting pumped up here watching this game. And I tried to think, when's the last time I've got pumped up during a Steelers game? When you're not at the stadium. I don't know.
Well, it's because Tomlin's always just preaching at you that the standard is the standard. You're just average.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it. See, Tomlin, I guess it could start from the top. You're right. I don't see it. I see some younger teams that are out there having fun. That's the one thing that I like with the Cardinals. Even though their game plans at the beginning of the game are awful, for whatever reason, they get excitement into the team at the end of the games, and they try really hard. If they could play like that the entire game, they could be better than I expected, which was a garbage team. So I don't know. It's crazy all around. I think that Rudolph is going to come in. He's the first of many. But I think at this point, first of many quarterbacks around the league, to come in this season, because there are a lot of old quarterbacks. But
now, what the $1 million question is, how bad does Josh Dobbs feel right now, knowing that they traded him away, and with Ben hurt, he could have been the man?
Well, let me get into that first, because I have this planned out. Steelers get Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins. They traded a first-round pick, and what did they trade? Well, hold on. Let's just get the stats out so that I don't sound like an idiot. So Minkah Fitzpatrick, he is a Dolphins cornerback / safety. I think he's more of a safety, and I think that's why I'm kind of down on this. So the Steelers gave them a first-round pick, 5th round, and 6th round. The 1st and 5th round are from 2020, and the 6th round doesn't come out till 2021. Steelers in return get Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 24th round pick and a 21 7th round pick. So next year they'll have a 4th round. They lose their 1st round and a 5th round. I feel like the trade-off is worth it because they need secondary help. And my God, if Edmonds hits another receiver and doesn't wrap up, I'm going to lose my mind. Because what are you doing out there? Now, there was one, I don't remember what the receiver was, but he hit him, didn't wrap up, and then he got ran over. And I was like, why are you delivering a heavy blow if you can't even knock the guy down? So, secondary help. I wish I had more details so I could give the play. I'll try to find a highlight. I don't even know if I have that game down, but
it definitely helps because Sean Davis, the Steelers safety, was placed on the IR with a torn labrum and can come back in 8 weeks. I mean, it was definitely a move. And, scrolling through Twitter, I saw a lot of negative reactions on the trade. I mean, let's be honest. Pittsburgh's drafted defensive backs every draft since, forever. And since Paul essentially, and they're awful. Picks have been awful. So for me, I think it makes sense to try to make the move that they did, acquire someone decent that's young, and even like the comments of, well, he's young and he's on his rookie contract. Any more NFL players are proving that it doesn't matter what your contract states. So before it's all said and done, maybe we make a move to bring Ramsey on board. Ramsey wants out of Jacksonville. It seems like they're trying to get in on the Tua sweepstakes and just tank and beat the Dolphins out for the number 1 overall pick. And I would be willing to put next year's one to bring Ramsey over, and then you solidify the secondary. And to have Pittsburgh win this year, I don't think they're that far off. I think they just have to. They're shoring up the secondary, which everyone agrees sucks for Pittsburgh. So you bring in a really good, talented piece to this puzzle, and you don't put a whole lot on Mason Rudolph. You let him throw his quick routes and some of the underneath stuff that he did at Oklahoma State, and I think they'll be fine. They'll chew clock. He just has to manage the game, get the ball out to his receivers, and they'll be just fine.
So with the Jalen Ramsey talk, that's my second point. Jalen Ramsey asks for a trade right after, and I knew that he wanted out. He's been wanting out. We talked about this last year, I believe. Steelers have already traded Josh Dobbs to the Jaguars. Do you think it would have made more sense to trade for Ramsey instead of Fitzpatrick with Dobbs in that deal and the first-round pick?
It's always 2020, and I don't know that they would have moved him at that time. But I think when you see the blow-up on the sideline between him and Doug Marrone, I think that's kind of pushing these talks even more. Because when you have the coach going after him on live TV, knowing that there's cameras and everything else there, now you really have something to leverage it with. I would have loved it. I still think he's the best corner in the game, but I think he's just they have him basically just handcuffed because there's a lot of the other good players that were around the last couple of years have been just let go.
That's what I want the Steelers to get more cornerback help. You can keep bringing in safeties, and I feel like you can fill that void during the draft. You can get productive guys, and that's why you get Fitzpatrick. You don't know, is he going to be more of a nickel corner? Why, at that point, why give up a first round for that? And then yet another safety if he's a safety. I mean, like you said, Matt, we keep drafting all these safeties. Like, why? At some point, safeties are safeties. You can get a journeyman that's going to be able to fill that void. You always need a lockdown corner. And if you could throw Dobbs in with the first round pick that you're going to give up anyway, I just feel like, man, maybe they missed it by a week or two. I think if they would have sat on it, I mean, yeah, you started 0-2. Do you need secondary help? Yes. Could you get Seahawks off the field? No. Was Russell Wilson just tearing you up at the end of the game? It was painful to watch. Every time I thought, okay, Steelers get a stop here, and it's over. For whatever reason, Wilson's able to extend the plays, find guys that get open. I don't think secondary helps there. He's extending the plays. They need to get a better focus on the rush. But maybe they have too many guys in coverage because they don't feel comfortable with the coverage guys. They can't leave their guys on an island. I don't know, because I'm really missing the NBC Skycam view that a lot of people hated, because then you could have saw those things. A lot of the times they still have the TV one up too close. You can't see the coverage. And so I don't know if that's what's going on. I think Jeff was at the game, but he's not on the show tonight. I was curious to ask him, what did it look like? Were they just giving up on the rush? I don't know. But I feel like, as a fan, I would have rather had Ramsey. Now, Fitzpatrick could work out, and it could be great, but I think for immediate returns, this team needs a guy that can lock down in the secondary and where you can throw another guy up and get that pressure on the quarterback. Because they're not getting it done. Defense isn't getting off the field. I don't care how pumped up the offense gets with Rudolph. But man, It's crazy. I was actually talking to my dad before this show, and he had a little stat for you, Matt, that he heard. He said that, what did he say? He said Rudolph was the first, or no, he said it's been a while, but he was the first backup quarterback on the Steelers to actually throw for the first touchdown of the season. So Roethlisberger didn't get any against the Patriots, gets injured, and the backup quarterback gets the first touchdown of the season. And then he tried to tell me who the last one was, but then he got confused because he didn't remember Tommy Maddox. He went all the way back to Neil O'Donnell because he said, I think it was that guy that played for the Jets after. But then he said, but hold on, I might be forgetting Cordell Stewart. So I said, well, you got the first fact, Dad. I'm going to throw that in there. So I'm giving him credit. And I'm hoping that I think it's accurate. Rudolph threw the first touchdown of the season for the Steelers, and I would imagine it's been a long time since Ben's been there. At least. I don't think he's been hurt early in the season. I just think that elbow injury and his age. So my next couple of topics are all old quarterbacks. You have the oldest in the league, and I don't know if the dates or the ages are accurate because trying to find out how old a quarterback is, I'm not going to read their birthdays and doing the math myself. I think Tom Brady was 41 last I saw. And you have Drew Brees next. I think he's 38. I think Eli Manning's right there. I think he's 38 right now, but he could be 37. He gets benched for Daniel Jones. Ben Roethlisberger is also 37. And he's out. I think this is it. When you're this age, you don't come back. It is these guys. You have Eli Manning. He's lost it. It reminds me of Peyton Manning, Matt, where he was done. The Broncos could have thrown out anybody at quarterback, and I think they win that Super Bowl. Peyton Manning's not winning that Super Bowl by himself. They just need a guy to, hey, whatever you do, buddy, just don't throw an interception. Like, just go down, do whatever you need to do. I feel like that's what the Broncos' game plan was, and it worked. And I feel like Eli's at that point where, hey, whatever you got to do, like, you're not going to win the game for us. And they benched him. What are your thoughts on that?
You're breaking up there a little bit.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What are your thoughts on Eli Manning getting benched?
Well, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. I didn't think he was very good to begin with. And for all the New York Giant fans out there, that we covered it, and I said that he was going to be a decent quarterback. He falls under that same Cutcliffe tree that he knows how to develop quarterbacks. So it's not like he was going to be trash. And I think it's a good turn. Move him along.
Do you think anyone picks him up? Like if they try to move him, or do you think he just retires?
I'm sure because of his name that someone would take a flyer on him. I mean, Pittsburgh might take a flyer on him if they put the right amount of money on him.
Could you imagine? There's no way.
They're running Paxton Lynch right now.
They're not going to bring in a high-profile quarterback, though, I don't think. Although it would be funny if Eli Manning came back to Pittsburgh, or he was never there, but came to Pittsburgh and led them back to the playoffs. I think that would be hilarious.
He'd have his statue next to Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger.
Terry Bradshaw came out and said that he would never throw to Antonio Brown. Did you see that?
I didn't know what to say. That's ridiculous.
He said if he was on his team, he would never have thrown him the ball. Makes me laugh. The next one, Drew Brees. He throws the ball during the game, and his hand comes down, hits the defender in the helmet. I think they said it was a thumb injury, but he's out for 6 weeks. He's next on the list, Matt. He's the second oldest quarterback in the league. Remember whenever they came back and said that this is way back when he was with San Diego. They thought that he was injured beyond repair back in the mid-2000s. He came back strong.
He's the original Andrew Luck.
True. Andrew Luck could take a year off, completely heal, not do any football stuff, and come back. We don't know. I wouldn't put it past him. But do you think Drew Brees is going to come back and make an impact, or do you think he's going to keep getting injured and start to go downhill?
I just don't know how much. I think he may finish the year out, and then depending on how things go at the end of the year, probably walk away at that point. I would be surprised for him to come back.
I believe it was his throwing hand, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what my issue is, because I could see him working out. I think if it was his non-throwing hand, he could play another year. I'm worried now that he's how old? He injures his thumb. That has to affect his throwing power, his grip on the ball. There are going to be some other issues that just come with age. And I feel like he's the third quarterback, and these are all legendary guys. They all won. Well, Drew Brees only won one Super Bowl, but Eli and Ben both have two. So that's 5 Super Bowls over the past, 15 years that these guys have won. That's a third of the Super Bowls. You're losing in week 2 of this NFL season.
So come on, Phillip Rivers. Let's step it up here.
No, because my last guy, I think Phillip Rivers, he's 37 too. I think they're all right around the same age.
They were all in the same draft.
Yeah, he hasn't had one, but you know who has? My man Tom Brady. I have him on the board. He's going strong. No injuries, hanging out. He has a great new receiver on his team that he threw a touchdown to. You might have heard of him, Antonio Brown. He went out there, caught the touchdown. He has, what else? Everyone thought Gronk was going to be such a big loss. I don't even see that. They're running 3 deep at running back. They have Rex Burkhead that's getting meaningful touches and putting up big fantasy points as the third back with Sonny Michel and was it James White? It's crazy.
Well, I must think that if you follow that same blueprint, dink and dunk passing, that's right in Mason Rudolph's wheelhouse, that he could do that. And I think with New England doing that, that's smart that number one, it doesn't force Brady to have to throw the ball deep downfield, that I don't know that he can still push it down the field at his age. And it also, throwing it quick, he's not having to deal with getting hit consistently, where Roethlisberger, he was always just running around and scrambling, extending the play, and getting drilled.
That's where I think he's done. And I would hate it. I know we talked about Eli Manning moving. I don't know how Giants fans feel about that, but it's a different situation. Ben gets hurt. I would hate for him to pull a Brett Favre and sign with Jacksonville or something. Because why ruin your legacy? It's almost like...
Ben's under contract they just renegotiated with him for 3 more years. So I think, if he does decide to come back, he's coming back to Pittsburgh. And I would think that you're probably going to see him come back for at least one more once he recovers from this, because I think he's going to want to prove that he walks out on his terms and not just be, well, I got injured and leave.
Matt, have you not followed football? If anyone doesn't play, they can immediately just start throwing a gigantic fit. And the media, ESPN, will show up right at their house steps. Watch them do sit-ups in their driveway. Do whatever they need to do to make that be the story nonstop to ruin the entire team chemistry. So if Ben wanted to, and that's what I'm saying, I hope he doesn't, because I don't want him to ruin his legacy. I feel like he's a top Steelers quarterback. You could throw it up. Him and Terry Bradshaw are the face of the Steelers franchise. Terry's always on the NFL Network of what's he on, CBS? I don't know if people realize he was a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, although they throw out that graphic every 20 seconds, it feels like. But maybe that's just me. I just don't want him to go down. Tom Brady, they always talk about him. Is he going to leave and go to a new team? I would hope that he doesn't, because I think what you're seeing is kind of like the end of the era. You saw it with Derek Jeter and Chipper Jones in baseball. Guys don't play for the same team forever anymore. At least it doesn't feel like it. I would be shocked if you're going to get, 3? How many of these guys? Manning has only played for the Giants. Roethlisberger and Tom Brady right now. You have 3 Hall of Fame guys that have only played for one team. That's going to be unheard of. You might have Aaron Rodgers soon. That would be 4? I don't know if there's another one. So a lot of teams going high in the draft, drafting a quarterback first round, we make fun of them. But if you hit on your guy, these teams there were 4 teams right now, if I'm throwing Aaron Rodgers in there, that could get 15 plus years with their quarterback. Or how many years have these guys been in the league? Is it 15 now? Well, they start 2003. I don't know. That's too much math on the show that I shouldn't be doing on the show live. But I want to say that they've been around for that long. That's unbelievable return on your investment for a first-round pick. And Tom Brady wasn't even a first-round pick. I know Eli and Ben were. But, man, that's crazy. So, anything else you got from around the league?
Let me check. Thought I had some.
I think that was the biggest that we had.
Yeah, I think that those were the big ones.
Let's see. Pick'ems. The Steelers travel to San Francisco. San Francisco, if you listen to the show, you know that I hate them. So, normally, I don't even know what are they. They're just dirt. An easy win the past couple of years. We'll put it that way. Steelers now facing them. They're 2-0. Steelers are 0-2. Do you think the Steelers get their first win, and why?
I'm just going to keep riding the wave. Eventually, I'm going to be right here. Yes, they're going to get it. I think this is one of those rally around the quarterback deals that going in, they know Rudolph's quarterback. It seems like the team's comfortable with him being there. And I think with a full week of working on the game plan and running with the ones, I think you're going to see a better Pittsburgh team, and they're going to win it.
I'm going to go with the opposite direction because as a Michigan man, all the times we lose to Ohio State, you just pick the other team until it happens because I don't know if it's going to happen right now, and that's just realistic. You have a rookie quarterback going up against the 49ers, a hot team, and he's on the road, and it's the East Coast to West Coast travel. I just don't think that it's going to be enough to get it done. I'm not high on the 49ers right now. I still think that the Seahawks, the Seahawks look great. And hell, I could be wrong. Steelers have faced the Patriots, who go to the Super Bowl every year. For the past 3 years, it's been the Patriots from the AFC. Of course, there's a chance they could get killed. Everyone gets killed by them. Look at what happened to the Dolphins. The Dolphins were talking trash, trying to rub it in on the Patriots in past years. Bill Belichick purposely ran that score up. He purposely did. And I thought, damn, well, I should talk about that on the show. I should see what the line is of that game. Even Vegas knew, oh my God, this is perfect. We have to set this line high. I think the line was like the highest NFL line in like decades because they knew that Belichick was going to be pissed and they were going to run the score up, and that's exactly what they did. And I think the Patriots covered. I could be wrong. I think it was like, 19 or 20? Normally NFL lines are like 3 points because they want you to think that any team can win. No, not that game. So,
not that day.
They're blowing everybody out. So maybe they're not as bad. Maybe the Seahawks and the Steelers are actually great teams, and that was a shootout we just witnessed. So this week is going to answer a lot of questions. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be close. And I think Rudolph's going to go through some growing pains. He just has to learn how to win. And I hope he gets it done, but I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think it will happen at Heinz Field. It almost happened last week, but the defense couldn't bail him out. Just couldn't get it done.
So they had a first-round safety to help with coverage.
Or, Steelers couldn't have went for 2 early. Now, granted, you could just say that they would have missed a second one, but I think it was too early to go for 2 there. When they did, it was third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter? I think that's way too early because you never know. Take the points. Unless you think your field goal kicker sucks, take the points. That's my last gripe on them. Matt, we have a mailbag question for you. I don't know if it's really a question. I'm going to read it directly, though. So if you followed the show last year, you know that we had some big things with John Gruden. And got a comment. It says, I thought I'd check in with you to see how that Hall of Fame coach, and Hall of Fame is in quotes, that Hall of Fame coach is working out for the Raiders. Let me know. Take care. You want to fill us in? You want to give us your take on John Gruden?
Yeah. He cleared his locker room of a cancer. He won a football game, and he's at 500 right now. He's doing better than last year.
I did say he was doing better than last year, and I said that jokingly, 500 is on pace for 8 wins. You'd go 8-8 to get to 500 if that played out. I think they could have a higher ceiling than that. Of course, they played the Chiefs. Chiefs right now are the unstoppable regular season Andy Reid. You're going to have this the same as the old Colts Peyton Manning. In the regular season, you could face a beatdown. We don't know. Raiders don't get it done at home. I didn't really expect them to win that game. I feel like the Chiefs are going to be the shoe-in for the AFC West once again. Raiders have a great shot at a wild card. They won week 1 against the Broncos, so they already have the inter-division win that they need to start to get there to the wild card. Keep it going. I didn't see anything other than a team that could, yeah, sure, it was what, was it 28-10? Was that the final? I think it was like an 18-point win. Sure, they didn't come close. It wasn't like a shootout. But at this point in the season, it is early. I think they said 3 teams that were 0-2 made the playoffs last year. That's out of what, 8? So you could start 0-2. Raiders started 1-1. Not a bad look. Steelers 0-2. You're hoping that same thing holds, but who knows? Get to the playoffs. That's the only thing I have. And that's my last thing for the NFL. Do you got anything else you want to hit on?
Nope. We can move it along.
All right. I got some big news, Matt, from the AP poll. 6 teams ranked from this conference. Can you guess what conference it is?
Pac-12.
It's the Pac-12. And why? Because another coach we talk shit on, Herm Edwards.
Well, here's the logical reasoning. Because right now you have the SEC playing a bunch of FCS schools. So you can deflate them down now. And then as their records are increased and Oregon starts beating each other up, then you can justify putting the entire one half of the SEC into the top 25. Logical thinking.
Well, I'll say this. I think you have Herm Edwards doing better than what anyone expected. They went into Michigan State. And before we even get into it, I was watching the game. Michigan State has lights in their end zone or something. I don't know if it's video boards, but how is that legal? Because I feel like that's right in the player's eyes. I don't remember, I don't think any NFL team has that down there, and I've never seen it before that I can remember. But you know what I'm talking about? How behind the end zone there's like the wall. They have video boards that were flashing "Get Loud" while the Sun Devils were down there going for their touchdown. Like if you're the quarterback and you're looking up to try to find the play clock, I feel like that'd be pretty distracting to see all kind of lights flashing in your face. Do you think that's Bush League?
Hey, if the NCAA doesn't say anything about it, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
So I noticed that at the game. I also noticed that Michigan State came out there with their kicker for a chance to tie it. Horrible coaching because you're rushing your team out there. They didn't know if they were going to run another play, I think is what happened. So they waited for the play clock to run down. They ran out their kicking team. Kicker, he's running out there, hits it, nails it. I'm thinking, okay, overtime. Pac-12 brought their own officials. They sit down, Matt. They say, hey, we thought there were 12 men, but we recounted it, and there were only 11, so no flag on the play.
Nope.
A couple seconds later, hey, you know what? Actually, we're going to go to the replay, and we're actually going to count them this time instead of just, wasting 2-3 minutes out here just guessing.
Instead of lying.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Just call up to the booth. Isn't that the entire point of the booth? The booth can get a freeze frame on that play in probably less than 15 seconds. There could be a guy that can count to 12 in less than, 5 seconds? How fast does it count to 12? It can't be that long. You can even double check in 15 seconds. So within 30 seconds, I think you should have that called down and say, yo, they did have 12. Instead of wasting time huddling up. Hey, what did you see? Oh, I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't know if they were going to call play or not. I don't know what they were doing. But he's like, just say there were 11. I think there were 11. But they didn't. They re-kick it. And of course they miss it. I knew they were going to miss it. But did you see the complaints from Michigan State's head coach?
No.
So after the game, because I just wanted to point this out because last time Harbaugh complained about officiating, he immediately got fined. I don't think D'Antonio has gotten fined at all. So Big Ten, where are you at? Like, what are you doing here? He complained that he said, yeah, we got the 12 men on the field penalty, but the very next play, the Arizona State guy jumped over the Michigan State center, I believe, which is a 15-yard penalty. Of course, when he went to talk about it, they told him that that's not a challengeable play right after he just got a challenged review of the 12 men on the field. So hilarious that, let's be honest, that should be reviewable. I've said this multiple times. Anytime a play can be reviewed that would decide a game, review it. You can see that the guy jumped over the center and touched him. I think that's what the ruling was, or the penalty. 15-yard penalty. Just call it as it's written. Don't say, okay, we can do one penalty, we can review one penalty and give you a penalty, but we can't do the other one. It's either all or none. The NFL has the same stupid thing going on. Oh, we can review this, but we can't review the Saints pass interference last year in the playoffs. Like, nah, we can't do that one. But we'll take 30 seconds of a headshot look on the quarterback as he's sliding out of bounds, and we'll take 12 commercial breaks in that 3 minutes we're looking at that. Don't worry, that could fit in there. But if it's deciding the game, that's too much pressure. We don't want the bookies coming after us in Vegas for fixing games, for making game time decisions like that. And I feel like that's what they're doing. They're like, we don't know. We let them get a chance at the kick to tie it, but it didn't go through. And of course they would have had to win in overtime. But I feel like that win just signifies the Pac-12's reign. You're seeing all these teams win against, what, nobodies? The biggest win is what? Utah's win over BYU? And BYU everyone thought was garbage. Guess whose BYU's win is over, Matt? That gave them instant credibility. You named it, because I know you're not saying it. USC. So it's a Pac-12 circle. They hype up USC every year. Of course, USC loses to BYU. How can that be? BYU is garbage. Didn't they just get killed by Utah? So they say, well, maybe USC's still good, and BYU is good.
USC's going to get the bump because California just passed a law that players can make money off their own likeness. So that now they're going to start reeling in all the recruits so that they can start collecting cash.
That's a big foul, Matt. The NCAA definitely told them not to do that.
Tough break.
I wonder if South Carolina, I forgot, we talked about that last week. I wonder if they followed up and if they passed theirs or not. I didn't see any news on it. Probably because they don't want that in the news. They don't want players making money. But you're right. If they did pass that law and the NCAA let them play, the next recruiting classes at those schools would be nuts. Because how many people would go there? USC would immediately be back. Hopefully they're stuck with Clay Helton at that time. So let's hurry up. Let's speed this process up before they get Urban Meyer, because then all shit will hit the fan. We definitely don't want that situation going down. But Washington State, overlooked. They don't care about Washington State. They're going to put Utah up there because of that strength of the BYU win, because BYU beat USC, Matt. Can't you see? It's one big circle. They got to hype that team up. Utah has to be up there. They ranked Cal. Why? What has Cal done? Did they just go down a list of undefeated teams and they're like, yeah, we better vote for them? Arizona State, I think, should be higher, to be honest. They beat Michigan State. A lot of people were hyping up Michigan State. They went on the road to do that. That's a quality win. Rank them higher.
Do you think Chip Kelly's just mailing it in at this point? That he don't even care? He's just collecting a check?
Matt, did you watch that game? The announcer spent 5 minutes talking about how Chip Kelly knows what it takes to win. Like, someone had to give him that information. They said, you know what? At this point in the game, start talking about Chip Kelly and how he knows how to build a winner. Like, we've got nothing else. Because that's what I listened to.
A winner in 2013.
Unbelievable. I don't know if he's... You could draw comparisons to Lovie Smith, Pat. Lovie Smith, I was pumped because I thought, you know what? Illinois went out and they hired a big-name coach. What are they doing? Like, are they trying to win? This is going to be good for the Big Ten West. And then he's just out there retired. He's like, oh, there's a game going on. Losing to what, Eastern Michigan or someone like that?
He looks like a president now. He's just fading away. He just keeps getting grayer and grayer, just like these kids.
I love the gray beard. I wish more guys would rock that, because why? I feel like there has to be guys like Les Miles, dude. He dyed his hair. Did you see his hair? It looked like black as shoe polish.
Yeah, he looked like Mo.
It did look like a black and white Three Stooges. That's how dark his hair was. So if you want to look at Les Miles, he coaches Kansas now, which they get a big win. And next thing you know, his hair's back, his color's back. He's out there having a good win. Just let it go gray. Like, he looks awesome on the sidelines. I love that look. I think that's one of the coolest things about Illinois right now. Not the wins, not the football team, but Coach has an awesome beard. I'll go on record with that. Yeah, that's my take on the Pac-12. Too early to see. They have, just like the Big Ten, the 9-game conference schedule, and it starts next week. I know there's been some mixing and matching. This is when we're going to find out. I just really hope that, like you joked about the SEC, that we don't get into a cycle of, hey, the Pac-12 has all 6 great teams now. They're going to beat each other up. Like, that's exactly what's going to happen. And then they're going to keep hyping them up, just like I just explained with the BYU thing. BYU has to be good, Matt, because they beat USC. Not USC could be garbage. Stanford, dude. Stanford got destroyed by UCF. How are people not ranking UCF in the top 10?
Because they're not a real school. They're a pretend school.
I feel like that's just some Florida State jealousy coming out right now. UCF should be in the top 10 until further notice. Until I see them lose, because I can already hear the media try to spin this. Oh, they beat Stanford. Stanford's down this year. Watch Stanford win like 9 or 10 games in the Pac-12, and then they'll be like, oh, you know what? Stanford, it just took them a while to get going. UCF played them when they were weak. And then they'll try to just keep spinning it down and down. Just keep killing teams. Nick Saban came out and said, it's hard for me to schedule teams. UCF should have just went out there and said, no, we'll play Alabama. Like, why not at this point? Just throw it out there. Because you know Alabama will not schedule them. There's zero chance. Alabama will schedule Duke every year.
Well, no, they'll schedule them, but they'll schedule them for like 20 years from now. They know that, like, they've cycled out.
True. They could do that, but you never know with the way conferences and things are going. Who knows? UCF could be in a conference. They could still join the Pac-12 or the Big 12. If some of those teams try to join the Pac-12. So Pac-12 tried to grab some teams from the Big 12 a few years ago. It fell through, ended up with Nebraska leaving, and Pac-12 grabbed who? Colorado? I think that's it from the Big 12. The rest of the names, Texas and Oklahoma, they dropped out. So now you have the Pac-12 stuck at, do they have 14 teams or I don't even know how many teams they have. They don't have 12 still, do they?
I don't think.
Maybe they do have 12. But they're stuck in a unique situation where on the West Coast, there are no other schools that are big enough to support Division I football at a high level. You're down to, around those schools, you're down to Boise State, BYU, possibly Hawaii, but they're all the way out on an island. What other big schools are you going to get unless you try to poach someone else? I mean, you already have Arizona State. Your next big bet is to try to poach Texas Tech or some of the other Texas schools. They've tried it once. I feel like they're going to try it again. Unless they can get Kansas or Nebraska. I don't think Nebraska leaves the Big Ten, though. Once you start getting that big-time money, why would you leave for a sinking ship? So, who knows? If the Pac-12 does end up grabbing one of those Big 12 schools, though, I could see the Big 12 saying, look, West Virginia, why not grab UCF? Maybe grab another big school on the east side and call it a day. So don't put it past. In 10 years, UCF might be picked up just because alumni base is gigantic, because they're kind of a commuter school in the middle of Orlando, a big city that can support the school. So don't be surprised. I want to see them ranked. I can actually segue that into ACC, Matt. 3 undefeated teams left. Your Noles couldn't take down Virginia. Why?
I don't know. To be honest, my expectations have been lowered, but the thing that I was happy about was that it wasn't just a complete meltdown. Like, you saw that they were continuing to play hard, and there were a couple plays towards the end of the game where if the defense gets a stop, it changes the outlook. They couldn't get off the field, and I honestly think that was the big thing. That if they get any kind of stop, that they're in a good spot to win the game. I mean, they were winning 24-17, still had plenty of time to get a stop, and just couldn't finish it off.
They should have won.
They should have won.
Yeah, and that would have been a program-defining moment. I had a stat for you here. That's the first time that Virginia has been ranked and Florida State has not when they met.
I can believe that.
Because guess what? Virginia's never ranked.
Well, here's the other stat for you. There are 2 teams in the Power 5 that, with 2 losses, came from ranked teams. Who are those 2 programs?
Well, I guess Florida State would be one.
If you guessed Florida State, you would be correct. The other team among Power 5s would be your Pitt Panthers.
I was going to guess Pitt, but I couldn't remember who they lost to first. I knew they lost to Penn State.
Because they lost to Virginia as well.
Oh, Virginia, yeah.
State.
Well, Pitt, that's what I want to talk about next. They take Penn State to the wire. A lot of people drop Penn State, I think, in the rankings. I think Utah jumped Penn State and Michigan this past week because of that BYU cross-reference, because Utah has played no one since then. They beat BYU. The only reason they're jumping is because BYU beat USC. So now you have Pitt coming in playing tough against Penn State like they always do. And I thought they had a chance, Matt. Was it 4th and 1? Going into the end zone, they settled for a field goal that they missed. Unbelievable.
It's the dumbest call. To me, it was a defining moment for Narduzzi. And I've been a very high supporter of him, and I've liked a lot of the stuff that he's doing. And I think he's a good fit for their program. But that was a moment where I think he took a step back. Because why would you not go for it? I mean, there are a couple things. In number one, the college rule is if you miss the field goal, that the ball gets spotted on the 20. So they were on the 1. If they go for it and miss, Penn State has the ball right there. And they're more than likely not going to convert into any kind of point. So it doesn't hurt anything. And he goes for the field goal. And I guess, like, this is where, as a defensive coach, his mindset was take the points, get the stop, and then with your special teams, possibly maybe you get a big punt return that sets you up for the win, and then you score the touchdown and you have the go-ahead touchdown. But to everyone else, the common sense move was take the points while you're right there by the goal line, and don't wait till later because you may not have another chance, and that's exactly what happened. Penn State got the ball and ran it out, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, I agreed. I think they should have went with it. Do something, anything. You should be able to get a yard or two. And I know they failed like 2 or 3 times in a row. I think, were they down there? Was it 1st and goal on the 1 or something? I don't know if they started there or if that was the second down play where they started from there, but either way, they had a couple of shots. They seemed like they got out of their stuff when they got down there. Just run, do some misdirection, and then try to do like a pass or some type of gimmick, because if you fail, you had been getting a rush on Penn State for the last couple of drives. In fact, I think they had pressure on them to get the ball back at the end of the game. You're able to get pressure. Now they're in the end zone. Penn State most likely is going to run the ball 3 times because they do not want to be stuck. Plus, they run that spread system where do they even go under center? So you're adding another element where they're taking a shotgun snap in the end zone. Worst case scenario, like you said, they're going to bring it out anyway. So even with the field goal, you're taking your distinct advantage. Just go for it. I think it shifts the game. And then worst case scenario, you get the ball back and you're doing the same exact thing that you did. Instead of throwing a Hail Mary with like 1 second left, you might have more time to throw your Hail Marys or whatever you need to do. But at least go for the win and then try to go for the stop. Who knows? You could have got a safety and then got the ball right back. That's the same exact thing as the field goal at that point. Like, put it in the hands of your defense. You should have been getting them pumped up the entire time. So we're going for 2 because we trust our defense, and start pumping your defense up on the sideline. That's how I would have approached it as a coach. And I think Pitt really, man, they missed their chance, and it's going to be haunting them, because they have said that might be the last time Pitt and Penn State plays in our lifetime. I think someone said that after the game.
To me, that makes sense because it wasn't a rivalry game.
Yeah, Penn State's unrivaled, Matt.
They are unrivaled. Why? So it was a sellout game, and it didn't matter because it was just another college football game.
It wasn't a whiteout game, Matt. They don't use Pitt for whiteouts. They reserve those for non-rivals Ohio State and Michigan, and possibly Iowa. But they try not to do that for Iowa because Iowa beat them a few times. So that's not a big game now either, Matt. Did you notice?
Yeah. Well, there's never a big game. There are no big games. It's just another football game because they're unrivaled. They have the hashtag unrivaled to let you know exactly how much they don't have a rival.
Yeah, they don't care at all. That is why they have that. Speaking of Big Ten, I already talked about Illinois shit in the bed. Maryland, all week on ESPN, what did we hear about? Maryland has the best offense in the nation, Matt. They got that guy from Alabama, Loxley. You know, the same guy that won 3 games at New Mexico over however many years he was head coach there. Things they gotta work out, right? They know how to move the ball. This offense is dynamic. Surely they can score from the 7-yard line 2 times at the end of the game against Temple, right? Because I can't remember where exactly they got the ball, but the first one was like 1st and goal from the 7 after a turnover or something. They don't score. Then they get it back, Matt. Same situation. I'm watching the game. I'm thinking, Temple just wants to lose this game. Why do they keep giving Maryland the ball in the red zone? And to our point, we talked about Narduzzi not kicking the field goal. What's Loxley doing? Like, you trust your offense that much, but then you go ahead. Then at the end of the game, I had turned the sound off because I thought Temple was going to run the clock out. I look up, Mike Loxley, he's running out on the field. There's 2 seconds left. I thought, holy crap, did Temple just take a knee on 4th down and give Maryland the ball? No, Matt, he didn't. That was 3rd down. Mike Loxley wanted them to put 1 more second on so that, Temple could just snap it and take a knee in the end zone. And that's exactly what they did. It took 0. It didn't even matter that they got the safety. They would gladly take that safety just to win. Hell, that guy could have just snapped it, had their punter in the back of the end zone. He could just touch it, like just do an Olay, let it hit his hand. That 1 second would have ticked off the clock. Like, there was 0 chance of Maryland to get that ball back and run a play. At that point, I know you're trying to fight for a win, but what are you doing? I said Maryland was going to collapse. They collapse every year. They get that one big time win. Now, is that going to be relevant? If Syracuse would have beat Clemson, doesn't matter, because Clemson goes in They beat Syracuse. Did Clemson look good? No. Did the talking heads care? No. The AP voters, Matt, you know what? I read like 2 or 3 AP voters and why they keep Clemson number 1. They said that Clemson hasn't been performing because they look bored. Did you see that? Do you think they're just bored out there?
They probably are. They're probably waiting for a challenge.
Because they don't look good. Trevor Lawrence does not look good. He keeps throwing the ball up into coverage. And maybe they just think that, hey, this works right now. But if they ever get into a battle, meaning in the playoffs, I don't think this looks like a well-oiled team. Now, granted, they have, an easy slate? I don't think there's any teams that look like they will give them a challenge on their schedule left. NC State got killed by by West Virginia, and West Virginia looked awful. UNC, Mac Brown, what are you doing? Did you see the end of the UNC game? Yeah,
it was a mess.
So UNC,
the thing that's bad with it is that they came back after the fact. They said, "Oh, by the way, we did make a mistake." It's just like the ACC refs are the worst refs in all of college football.
But why was the running back doing that? So for people that didn't watch the game, UNC was driving to get a Hail Mary chance to win the game. And they were about at the 50-yard line. They throw a screen pass or like a pass to the flat. I think it was a running back. He catches it, has 2 blockers in front of him in about 7 seconds. Instead of just running at a diagonal to the sideline and getting as many yards as he can, because they would have been in Hail Mary range, he went up behind his blockers and slowly jogged until time expired. And I think he stepped on the out of bounds line. He slowly jogged over to the out of bounds, wasted all 7 seconds. I think there was 1 second on the clock. The ref blew it dead and said the forward progress had been stopped because the 2 guys blocking kind of gave up because they probably thought he ran out of bounds. Why would they be blocking for 7 seconds downfield? That makes zero sense.
But then the refs were like, nope, progress stopped, game over, and then they sprinted off the field before there was a chance for anyone to review it. They're like, nope, we're done. Collect our check. Let's get the hell out of here.
And you know that's a reviewable play because do you remember that year Texas and Nebraska were playing for the national championship, or they were playing for the Big 12 championship, and I think Texas went to the national championship, and they threw the ball out of bounds, and there was 1 second left on the clock, and they reviewed it to see when it hit. So I knew they could review that to see if he stepped out with 1 second left. The announcers had no idea what was going on. The fact that they called forward progress stopped and he was in bounds, so they were going to blow the whistle to rule the clock. Matt, it still doesn't make sense because didn't he get a first down?
Yeah, he had the first down, so the clock should have stopped.
So the clock should have stopped no matter what. So it was a complete disaster for ACC refs and just baffling. I think that's it. I don't remember there being any other good games, really. Were there any? Do you have anything else to hit on?
No, I mean, there was one other thing that ESPN made a big deal out of, was that a big FSU booster put his kid out in the yard and said that they're starting the lemonade stand to buy Taggart out. That's such a terrible stunt. And of course, it ends up right all over the front page of ESPN. That I like that there's other boosters now that are coming out starting a positive campaign, and instead of trying to buy Taggart out, using the money to help bookmark it for athletic scholarships and stuff like that. So good for the boosters, good for the alumni of fixing the problems of one idiot.
Yeah, I thought that was dumb, and I don't know why it made the front page, because I thought this seems really self-serving that this guy names himself as a booster, then puts his kid front and center.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further. He wasn't there 2 years ago when we had to reschedule ULM to keep the bull streak going. He wasn't there when there was all kinds of other issues that were going on and trying to buy Jimbo out. But now it's like, all right, let's get Taggart out of here.
Yeah, people don't remember Taggart wasn't there when they first had the troubles.
Yeah, there were so many problems, and that's why I said, yes, it is extremely frustrating, and I'm sure you can relate through the Hoke years of going into games and it's like, well, this sucks.
You mean when me and Jeff were at the Minnesota game and they put him back in with a concussion, our quarterback. Shane Boris, and everyone was like, why is he back in there? Didn't he just go on the sideline and almost pass out? And then they were like, oh, we don't know. We don't know what's going on. That's when I knew, oh, he has no idea what's happening. Like, your quarterback gets knocked out. He's on the sideline, like, completely passed out, and then they're putting him back in the next play.
Can you go? Can you go?
Yeah. Get back out there. He had no idea. But, yeah, it's crazy, college football. I just feel like boosters, anybody can be a booster. Like, why put your name out there unless you're just trying to get a thing? I think we've read that, actually, the booster definition on the show before because of someone that got in trouble for, like, disassociation. Because a booster is anyone that you don't have to go to school there. You don't have to do anything. It's like donating more than $5 and or purchasing season tickets. You can purchase season tickets and call yourself a booster. I believe in the eyes of the NCAA, so not a big deal. Let's wrap it up with we'll go through our picks. We already did the Steelers. Let's go with first off, the dumbest thing. So Fox bought the rights to the Big Ten, and they had created a thing called the Big Noon, Matt. Did you see the Big Noon? It's been all over. The Big Noon matchup between Wisconsin and Michigan, of course. 2 top 15 teams going at it. The Big Noon, they're going to start putting their big time games at noon. Because why not? It's not like college football has ever been played at noon before.
You want to see 2 teams that aren't going to throw the ball well.
Hey, last year Michigan blew Wisconsin out 38 to something. Different offense, though. Michigan has speed and space this year. Works so well against Army. I think Wisconsin, they had the spread at like 0 because Michigan was the favorite I saw first. I think it's now in Wisconsin's in their favor because it went from 0 to, I think, -3 for Wisconsin, just giving them the home bump. Who do you got in this one?
I'll just go with Don Brown.
Honestly, Michigan is a dog right now. Jim Harbaugh has never won as an underdog at Michigan. So I'm going to go with Wisconsin. He hasn't won on the road. I mean, I'm trying to think back. When has he won on the road? It was the Michigan State game, I remember, where Jabril Peppers got the 2-point conversion and ran it to the house. And they timed his 40-yard dash, and he ran like a 4.4 on the field in pads. Or 4.3 or something like that. It was crazy. Look that up if you didn't see it. He picked up a 2-point conversion running full speed because it bounced right to him. And they timed his 40-yard dash on the field in pads for the NFL draft. That was the last game I remember Harbaugh winning big time on the road. I'm not talking about like 78-point beatdowns of Rutgers. That doesn't matter. So I don't think he gets it done. Luckily, it's not a night game. That night game on the road is reserved for Penn State, I believe. So we'll see if he gets it done. He put the beat down on Wisconsin last year. Michigan loses a lot of talent on defense, so yeah, Don Brown can game plan. But I haven't seen it. Offense looks the exact same. You can't run spread if your quarterback is afraid to run the ball. You just can't. I think Michigan's starting wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, is still injured. That's a big-time NFL guy you're losing. And after that, you have 2 other guys that are NFL talents. They haven't been utilizing them. You don't have 3 guys on the field that can stretch it until he comes back. I don't think they're going to get the win. Let's get into our other games. Hold on, let me get the list.
While you're pulling that up, I'm glad to see that old Hugh Freeze got his first win at Liberty, beating Buffalo. And he did it from an orchestra chair this week. So I kind of like that right now he's kind of playing this game like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? He just kind of coaches all over the place. I think he'd be like, where's Hugh Freeze this week? Oh, we Velcroed him to a light. Where's he at this week? He's at a Subway eating a sandwich. Like, he'd just be at random places just calling the game.
That's very true. And I feel like it's going to help their program, and I think they could be one that takes a gigantic step. And who knows, eventually they could be the next UCF. You get the money, you start to take those other recruits that people pass over, kind of like Virginia Tech used to do. You never know. you can make that jump. I really think who's left that really does that in the big power conferences? West Virginia. That's it, really. I think Virginia Tech really has stopped doing that. So next game, I already talked about on the entire show. Utah, USC. It's at the Coliseum. Who do you got?
Trojans.
I got them too. I think it completes a circle. I think USC wins a game, and then they don't know where to rank them because they have to be ranked. Utah then can't fall out because then it doesn't compute. What do they do with BYU? They rank them. They're like, what do we do with all these West Coast teams that just keep beating each other up?
We'll just take them all out.
Hey, Boise is still undefeated. They play undefeated Air Force. Who do you got in that one?
I'm going to keep going with Boise so that it makes Florida State's loss look better.
And you never know. That could be the big time. Who knows? Maybe that's another alternative if they never expand the playoffs. You could just have Boise play UCF for a semi-national championship, like a junior national championship. Could be an option. Let's go down the list. Any other the big time matchup? UCF and Pittsburgh. How big do you think the loss is going to be? It's at Hyde Field. If you want to see a national championship team, go look and see USC or UCF. I mean,
this is another opportunity for Pitt to get a signature win. Knock off UCF, and then they say, "Hey, we beat UCF. They're national champions."
Well, Matt, you know that if Pitt beats UCF, they might not be ranked for the rest of the year. Because the mental gymnastics for the AP poll voters that would go through to try to get them out. Like, look, it's impossible. Pitt could win the Coastal and they would still make an excuse. Like, yeah, that UCF, that they really can't be ranked because Pitt beat them. So I feel like UCF's going to blow them out. It's going to be like 52-10. And then they're going to drop Penn State again in the rankings next week. Because they're going to say, Penn State must be really bad because they really struggle with Pitt and UCF just destroyed them. Auburn, A&M.
I'm going to go with Auburn here.
You going against your man?
Going against the man. Just because Gus still runs Wing T, so Wing T guys stick together.
Rumor is he's going to be mixing in his other quarterback because Bo Nix can't run it as well as he would like. So he's going to start going to the 2-quarterback system.
Because every time you go to a 2-quarterback system, it works better.
2 words, Matt. Tim Tebow. That's all you need to know.
Brady.
Tim Tebow, he was the greatest number 2 quarterback of all time. He'd come in and do that tight end jump pass for the Gators. Remember that? Here's our other circle. Washington taking on BYU.
Washington. Peterson's was slow to start. They'll win this one, and then just complete train wreck will happen.
I think they do win, and I think that if they don't know what to do with BYU, they won't know what to do with Utah, and that's just going to be a complete mess. And then for our last one, the biggest game, Notre Dame and Georgia.
This has to be a statement game, and just for the sake of the college football playoffs, I hope Georgia puts 70 on them. And because there's no way that like Notre Dame can come back. Like, they lost by like 70. Like, their season's done. You have to see them get blown out in the playoffs.
Well, I think you're wrong. I think Notre Dame's going to make it a game. And does Notre Dame win? Because if Notre Dame wins, they could potentially still get their loss at Michigan because they haven't really fared well there over history's time, messing up the SEC's 2 bids. Because then you can't put Georgia in if they lose to Alabama because then you're going to have a Notre Dame sitting right there.
But I don't know that at this point we've kind of hit the drum pretty hard on 2 SEC teams. I don't know that they want 2 SEC teams. I think they want an SEC champion. And I feel like at this point, they still feel confident that they can ride the coattails of Alabama as long as Saban's there. And I think as long as one of them is in position to make it, they're satisfied.
I just hope that if my man Mike Leach wins the Pac-12, because he takes on UCLA for their first big-time game. Normally he stumbled early in the season because it takes his offense a couple games to click. But they beat Houston, and now they start a Pac-12 schedule that doesn't look intimidating. The biggest one is going to be the 28th against Utah. We don't even know how good Utah is. I just don't want him to be left out sitting there at 12-1 if they were to go and win the Pac-12 against a 12-1 Georgia team. So I'll be cheering for Notre Dame in that one because I think Notre Dame, I think they can beat Georgia. Their schedule is harder than Georgia's. So I think they have the best chance at another loss. I think Georgia's has a good chance to run it. If they beat Notre Dame, they have another good chance to run the rest of their season and lose to Alabama in the championship game or Auburn. Like, I don't think that if Alabama loses to Auburn, I don't think that Georgia beats either of them. I don't think they have them on the regular season either, because I believe it's just, I mean, let's look at their schedule is done. They played Vanderbilt, Murray State or whatever, Arkansas State, Notre Dame. Then they play Tennessee, awful. South Carolina, they could be awful. We don't know. Then Kentucky, they're decent, but not world beaters. Florida just lost Felipe Franks. Missouri, and they do play at Auburn. So I guess they could end up stumbling to keep them 2 teams out. But then they get A&M and then Georgia Tech. So after this game, you only have 2 more chances. There's a great chance that they go undefeated. There just is. Notre Dame, I think, has still the tougher schedule. I just don't think that the NCAA wants to see the same couple teams. I just don't think they're able to fix it until they expand the playoffs. You're going to have Notre Dame there until Brian Kelly leaves. You're going to have Georgia there with Kirby Smart. You're going to have Alabama. And then you're going to have what other team you're in. Ryan Day with Ohio State. Possibly Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. You're getting the same teams every year. It's not helping until you expand the playoffs. Anything else you got for the final bell?
Nope. Just check out the website, check out the store, help support this podcast.
Yeah, definitely go there. Make sure you subscribe. Leave a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you listen to the show, because that will help us get our name out there too. And if you would like to see anything on the show or hear us talk about anything, let us know. I know we've been going kind of long on football season stuff, but that's the best sport. Let's be honest. So there's a lot of stuff to cover, especially because Steelers didn't start off too hot. A lot of injuries around the league, and then college football, of course. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.